we are a small group. Just feel free to interrupt me. My intention really is to introduce you a bit to our homegrown color softwares, homegrown publishing and prepress. So, and how an industry that heavily relies on PDF deals with a PDF format with all the advantages, and that is why it is in the industry the only format that is being used because of all these advantages, but also there are, as we all know, some flaws, some problems. How does this industry deal with that? So that is what I plan to do. And that is the structure. So first, a few words on the industry, prepress, print, PDF, and then how the industry deals with PDF files with a flaw specifically. So how does the industry deal with something that is a raw material of every printed substrate that we see? So everything that we're looking at that has been printed was normally a PDF file before. So it is the only raw material, the substrate and the ink, of course, but it is something that is essential to each printed piece. So we look into the industry, then how to deal with these critical things, and then automation, which is something that is essential these days for print and prepress as well, and a very brief outlook into the future. So for the ones, there are a few here that I know from, they are in the same space as I am, prepress people. For the ones who are not there, you may think this is kind of a dying industry. So we used to have full mailboxes or fuller mailboxes 10 years ago. It's rarely that we still have printed magazines or newspapers. So we all consume our information online. Most of us do so. So that is definitely an industry that is shrinking. We are seeing that amongst our customers as well. So these are not developing industries, similar for commercial, not as drastical. So for commercial flyers, business cards are still used. Flyers are still used, but also there, lots of the marketing spendings of the companies go now into online. Variable data, invoices, and so forth, same. So many invoices these days we receive as native PDF files that haven't ever been printed. So we have definitely areas where it's not that much print anymore, but maybe unnoticed for many users, there are areas that are increasing. So lots of the clothes that we wear is being printed these days. That is in slightly increasing area. Wallpapers are printed, and that all this is digital. So why we had for publishing and commercial, we had offset printing or other printing methods. The increasing areas are all digital printing machines, but not what we have in the office, more something like that. That is for textile here, large devices that can print quickly. So we have textile, we have display. So you saw the displays in the other room with Color Software as a gold sponsor on it, and also other gold sponsors. So these are large format, or the displays that you can see in the supermarket. Of course, all of that has also to be printed. And that is an increasing area. And even more increasing is label and packaging. So label and packaging is just evolving. That's an area where everybody in the print space wants to be. Yes? Cool. So a few things for the one who don't know that industry that much, a few things that are important to understand. I already mentioned PDF is just the format. Since 2002, PDF has taken over everywhere. Until then, we were using Quark Express files, InDesign files, maybe even PostScript. But now everything's PDF with some minor, really minor exceptions in textile. Sometimes images are used still, TIFF images or so, and variable data invoicing. There is the AFP file around, but also there, the goal is of the industry to develop towards PDF. So PDF is just the standard for printing. And one thing that is specific in this industry, the supplier of the PDF, so the supplier of the most important and most difficult to deal with raw material, is also the customer. Yeah. So, and that, of course, makes it difficult to apply QA on the raw material. So the industry started in 2002. Everybody was saying, okay, let's educate our customers. And that just didn't work. Customer does what he wants or she wants, and then sends some PDF file to the printer, and the printer has somehow deal with it. And the third thing is maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe the total area that is printed today is smaller than the area as it was, let's say, 10 years ago. I don't know. Maybe that is the case. But what I know is the amount of printed PDF pages, the amount of pages, that is increasing because the number of imprints per page goes down. So you have individualization in print. You have things that aren't just the print counts go down, and that means, and that is an important trend in print industry, because you have to process more PDF pages in shorter times. Things that have been done 10 years ago manually can't be done manually anymore. So you need to do automation. Or you could look at it like darkroom processing. So you don't want a human to look at the PDF file before it's going to the printing machine. And then last slide, introductory, a few numbers, rough numbers. So don't be too critical on the numbers. But in general, for conventional offset print, you in average have 5,000 prints per page, let's say, or 5,000 clicks. In digital, in average, it is much smaller, as I've said. It's maybe 2,000. So digital makes it possible that the print runs go down. Similar when looking at pages for sheet fed offset. Commercial offset print, in an hour I may need 50 pages to feed my machine. When I'm looking at digital printing machine, toner based, I need 10,000 pages to feed my machine per hour. And in high-speed inkjet, it may be even 100,000 pages. So you need to process many more pages per hour to feed the printing machine. And if you're not able to come up with enough pages for the printing machine to feed it, it would cost you some money. So because the printing machine can't pay back for the expense of it, and then that might be 1,300 euro. Again, these are really rough numbers, but just to give you some feeling about how that industry works and what's important in that industry. Okay, now the major part. What does that mean for the industry when it deals with PDF files? So just a few screenshots. So what can happen if a PDF file is not well prepared for being printed? This is from the office space. So normally if you have such a large digital printing machine, you may see different error messages, but the reason is the same. So if the printer, if the RIP that transfers, that converts the PDF structure, the PDF file format into an image, a bitmap that can then be printed. If that software can't deal with the PDF format, you see an error. That's it. And obviously, while it's annoying in an office environment, it's a no-go if you have a very expensive digital printing machine waiting for the next job. So you want to make sure that the internal structure of the PDF file is valid and can be read, and that it is complete. So far, so good. But when we are looking closer at it, so maybe it's not that easy. So what if we would just say it needs to be a valid PDF file? The first issue is, what if our software just tells me it's not a valid PDF file? Something's wrong there. So how I told you, a customer is the provider of it. So I can call my customer, tell him, okay, that is not a valid PDF file. And then he's saying, okay, and now, yeah, I don't know. It just the software just tells me it's not valid. Okay, then I have another printer at the corner. I go there. So that's a no-go. So we need to be more careful with checking the validity of a PDF file. And then if we look at that, there are many structures in a PDF file that aren't needed for PDF, for printing. It's like metadata, we don't care. Tagging is important, as we've learned today, but if that is not a valid tagging structure, it doesn't matter for printing. Bookmarks, embedded files, even text that can be printed, so where I can place a glyph on the page, but where I don't have Unicode, so a screen reader wouldn't be able to read the text, or nor could I copy the text out of the PDF file. It's not an issue for printing. So many of the important structures inside of a PDF file aren't really important for PDF, for printing. And then there are others that are sometimes important, layer structures. If you want to use layers, so if not all the objects on a page are to be printed, only the layers that are visible, then of course I rely on the layer structure, annotations, whether or not they are printed, that they're dependent on whether these structures are important. So it's not so easy to just say, okay, I need a valid PDF file.
The validators, the checkers can say, okay, I don't care.
Right. Yeah.
Just X.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. Yeah, again. Yeah, indeed. So what I did is in our support system, customers would send us PDF files where they have issues when they attempt to print them and they can't be printed. And looking at that, the most frequent issue here is incomplete images. So a PDF file, and something happened when the PDF file was created, the image was not fully available maybe to the creator, and then it's not just complete inside of the PDF file. That was the most frequent issues. Similar missing indirect objects, so the content stream of the PDF file references a font or an X object, so some encapsulated content. It's being referenced by the name of the object, but that object is not in the resources of the page. And then there is nothing that RIP could do with that other than throwing an error or just ignoring it. And a third one that is more special, but was also frequent, inline images, or images that are part of the content stream. So in PDF, you can have images in X objects as a resource, or you have images in the content stream, and the image formats, the compressions that you can use as an inline images as part of a content stream. The compression filters are different. The names of the compression filters are different. And it's not an infrequent issue that the creators mix that up and just use a compression filter that would normally only available for images in X objects. So some background. So these were just looking at, I don't know, let's say 20, 30 PDF files in support. these were the most frequent issues. And then I did some analysis. There is the Arlington model developed by the PDF Association, available for download. It's a PDF validation tool. Yeah, so it's a machine readable data model of all PDF objects. So based on the PDF specification, it basically goes through the PDF specification and all tables of dictionaries where a dictionary says, this entry in this particular dictionary is mandatory, that can be there. So it's not mandatory, but it is allowed, and others that aren't mentioned in the PDF specification. You can flag these issues by using Arlington. It's open, and I could easily adjust it to the needs of the printing industry. So I could say, I don't care about metadata, I don't care about tagging, I just use the model, that parts of the model that are applicable to rendering. But then I looked at Arlington, so maybe I could improve our own internal validation by using Arlington. But then I found actually all the issues that I see in real PDF files, I can't really cover that with Arlington. If there is an incomplete, because Arlington only looks at the structures and not at the streams themselves. So Arlington wouldn't look into the image stream. It wouldn't tell me whether the image is complete or not. So that is just nothing that I could do with Arlington. In order to identify whether the font that is referenced from a stream is actually there, I would need to look into the stream, so in the content stream of the page. So another case where Arlington doesn't allow me to find this issue. Same for X objects and compression filters and inline images. Actually, if it would be a referenced image, that would be possible, because then the referenced image has an entry for the filter, and Arlington would tell me that has a value that is not mentioned in the PDF specification. However, I told you inline images are part of the stream. So unfortunately, that again is not something in the resources. It's not an external object. So again, nothing that I could use Arlington for. So I think it's a great tool, Arlington. That was my resume of that. So it's a great tool, but it should be more used by creators of PDF files to make sure that their software creates proper PDF files. But it's not so much a tool for consumers, because you need to do something with it. So, okay, what are people doing in the industry? So softwares, our softwares, others, they just take the PDF file and assume they want to process it. So look at our content streams invisibly, so you wouldn't actually render it on screen, but you would invisibly render it somewhere with a low resolution so that it goes quickly, but you'd still have to process all structures that are in a PDF file, and you wouldn't just end with the PDF structures themselves. You'd also have to look at fonts, so all the fonts that are embedded in ICC profiles. So that would be for checking, but that would still, in the prepress industry, leave us with the question, okay, now that we are able to identify an issue, how would we deal with that? So again, it would be difficult to tell a customer to just send a different PDF file. So yeah, we can not just stick with just checking. We need to somehow fix something, and that is what the industry does. So when we have these files from the customers, we analyze the issues, and then in the end we have to make a decision whether fixing the issue is unequivocally, I just looked it up. So whether it's possible, whether it's possible without question, so whether you have all information to fix it, then you just fix it. And if it's not clear, because there are two ways to fix it, if not all information is there, then you would have to flag an error, even in automation. So then how difficult that ever is, you would have to do something with the file that as early as possible, the printer will identify there is an issue. And that is an ongoing task because you can't prepare for every possible issue in a PDF file, obviously. You have to look at real world PDF files, analyze them, and make sure to understand how is the issue coming into the PDF file and what is the source of it. So what creator application was used to create that issue, and then can it be possibly fixed?
Throughput performance issue. You said, I know the printers are very fast. You said more files, and this is somewhat intensive.
That is asynchronous. So you would do that in a workflow, and you can do that when you receive the PDF file. So, and that is what's normally happening. Yeah, normally that is, you could, so often the name normalization is used. So you would receive a PDF file from a customer, and you would first normalize it for your internal processes, which means you double check the structure, you fix everything, you even mention severe issues, so that at least an operator can have a look, and that would all happen asynchronous to the print job. And then once normalization has happened, then you can start planning it in for production. Yeah, and normally this takes more time than actually printing, but that's not an issue because you can just do that in parallel on various files. Yeah, performance. That is the other issue. So I told you, so even if I'm sure the file can be printed, I mean, if the machine needs 100,000 pages per hour, and it cost me 1,300 euro, if there is not enough pages, the machine may need to wait for my RIP to prepare the data. So I just don't want only to identify invalid PDF files, unprintable PDF files. I also want to identify PDF pages that can't quickly be printed. And this is an example, so I think you can't really see it. It's a pattern of lines. It was used on a business card. Yeah, you can see just a fraction of it. It doesn't really matter. It's a pattern. It looks somehow nice. It would be easy if it would have been an image on a business card, not an issue. But it consists of 1,300 objects that transparently overlap each other. And that you can, even if you open it in a viewer, you can look how it builds the page. So first you see nothing, and then over time it comes up, and then in a printing machine that is just a disaster. And if it's a business card where you not just print one of it. Yeah, it is an animation, but then printers always suffer with animated printing. So anyway, that is an issue, and you want to detect that issue. There is an easy fix for it. Just pre-render it into an image, and then you have something that can be printed quickly. But here, the amount of time is again there. It can really slow down your workflow too, because if you really want to count 1,300, so I mean, a human can look at the PDF file and immediately see, oh, there's something strange going on here. But a machine would have to look at each of the 1,300 objects by itself, identify whether that there is transparency involved. So that may take time. So what our workflow needs to do, it needs to use a smart approach. So at first glance, make some assumptions whether there could be a problem, and only then dig deeper. Another performance case that is completely different is related only to variable data print, invoice printing or mass mailings, where you have print run once. So each postcard, for as an example, is different. So you have static content, which is the same on each postcard, but the address, of course, is different. So you have 10,000 postcard in a mass mailing, and each address is different, and all the rest is the same. A printing machine, it would be impossible if a RIP would have to calculate each page by itself to feed the machine an appropriate speed. That's, I mean, if it's not a very easy layout, at least it's impossible. So the only chance that you have is if the content that is repeated is encapsulated in an X object. So if that is the case, then the printing machine can, or the RIP can understand it, just put the static content into memory, cache it, and just get it back whenever it's reused. That's easy. So that is doable. But if that static content interferes with dynamic, with the address in, for instance, using transparency, then that doesn't work anymore. So, and that happens in reality. This expensive printing machine then needs, let's say, 10 seconds per page, and that's a disaster. So you want to find out beforehand, and you can do that, but that is a complex thing actually, to analyze the structure, identify whether there is content, everything properly encapsulated, and then you can try to come up with a new X object structure. So that is an issue that still happens. You can deal with it, but it's something you have to deal with. Okay? That's, I think, the most important things that I wanted to cover. So how does the PDF file format, what does the properties, the parameters, all the aspects of a PDF file format mean for an industry that heavily relies on PDF? So a few more words on the industry. So we covered kind of the PDF file format itself. There are standards building on top of PDF that are designed for the printing industry. And when you think automation, standards are always important. So I want to briefly look at the PDFX standard for the printing industry and the GWG Gantt Workgroup specifications that's built on top of PDFX. And then I also want into job-specific, workflow-specific requirements, which is called business logic. Just one slide for each of that. So PDFX, it's the oldest subset standard built on PDF. It came out around 2000, the first part of the standard, because the industry, when it adopted PDF as a main file format, quickly learned that not every PDF file can be printed. So industry thought PDFX or some PDF subset standard that specifies the internal structures that are needed for a PDF file to be printed. Some standard for that would be useful, and that was when PDFX, where X stands for exchange, was developed. And then all fonts, so completeness, everything that is needed to interpret the PDF file needs to be in the PDF file. Fonts, ICC profiles, whatever needs to be there, needs to be present, needs to be embedded into the PDF file. And all colors, of course, colors are important, needs to be device independent. No device colors, everything needs to be somehow device independent so that it can be converted for the color space of the printing machine. It's often used. So many printers these days say only accept PDFX files. It's often used by suppliers of PDF files. In fact, because the industry is prepared, fixing it. It's not so difficult often. It doesn't allow for encryption even. And then in these days, it started with PDFX1 and PDFX3. Nowadays, industry is also sometimes slow. We are at PDFX4, which is important because the transparency wasn't allowed in previous versions of PDFX, and that meant you had to, if there is transparency, you have to flatten it, which creates other problems. Anyway, PDFX4 is the thing to go for these days. And then PDFX is for the whole printing industry, so it doesn't matter whether it's commercial print or digital print or whether it's a business card or a large format display. And then some people again thought it would be better if there would be specifications specific to print methods and printing products. So, and then the Ghent Workgroup came up with 34 different variants for packaging, label, and so forth. And then where, for instance, PDFX is silent on image resolution because you can't say, I need 300 ppi for a business card in the same way as for a large format thing. So the rules are specific to print products and print processes. There is also for label and packaging, processing steps also covered in GWG, because in packaging and label, you don't have just the print page, you also have a cut line, because a label normally needs to be cut out, and then you have a cut line and you have requirements for that cut line. So there are additional things. Normally, practically, these are not used by customers. So normally customers providing PDF files would provide a PDFX file, but the printer could then decide to use these specifications in their internal workflows, or even enhance these requirements with more additional rules for their workflows or printing machines. So that is what I wanted to say about PDFX and Ghent Workgroup specifications. Now, business logic, so things that are specific to a printer, to a workflow. And that is where the whole complexity starts again. Or I have a valid PDF file, but then I need to do color adjustment. That's fairly easy. So I have an ICC profile, I have a color space for my printing machine. Since everything is already device independent in the PDF file, it's easy to adjust it to the color space of the printing machine. It may have to want to convert spot colors. As I've said, you may want to make sure that the cut lines works with the cutting machine that you plan it for, and then you need to do imposition. This is not, I mean, we could now use a few hours to talk about that. I just want to provide one example so that you understand a bit what this is all about. So this might be a label to be used on whatever, a bottle or so, and that is what the customer provides. Looks nice. That is exactly what the customer wants to see on his bottle. But what it's missing here is a cut line. It needs to be printed on some rectangular substrate somehow, but then it needs to be cut out. So what you need is some information for the cutting machine, some path in the PDF file that indicates where the cutter should cut, and then you can generate that automatically. But the cutter can't cut exactly at the edge of this thing, so it needs to have some bleed area, some bleed zone outside of the cut line. So you'd want to have an engine that automatically creates that bleed for you. And finally, you don't print just one label by one label. You want to place them as close as possible to each other on a sheet or something that would then fit into your printing machine. So these are things that you do these days, and where you have experts in your company or external experts that set up your engine so that it does exactly what it needs to do for the printing machine that you plan this job for. Yeah, and that is how to deal with PDF files before they are being printed. Next, automation. As I've said, so it would be somewhat easier if I would just tell my people in the pre-press department, just prepare the PDF files in the way I've just explained. But that is not how it's happening these days, because I can't pay the people. The prices that I can get for my print job aren't high enough to pay people for it. So I need to do that in an automated way. And all the rules, all the things that I need to apply, it's complex. So I'm every day when I'm talk to a new customer surprised how complex that actually is. So how many different requirements are there, how many interdependencies between rules about the PDF file, workflow requirements, printing machines, cutters. So many things comes into play here. So the rules for automation are really complex to set up, require some knowledge, experience with production processes. The printers would have human resources that know all of that because they have been doing that in the past manually. So they have these people, but these people are not programmers. And if I'm setting up a new print shop today, I don't have these people, so I would ask other people to help me with integrators. They are around, but many of them are not programmers. And so what's typically done in the industry, you have a low code approach where you have UI that allows you to set up rules, workflow rules, and quite complex. In our engines called process plans, even so, where one step follows the other with variables. You may use scripting if needed. So complex profiles that realize your requirements in your workflow. And then finally, so that is what's happening. That is how the industry works. A short outlook on what's coming for the industry. Two topics: HDR images, high dynamic range images that are taken with a smartphone, not just from my slides here, but where self-illuminant bright areas are easily to be displayed on a smartphone because that is self-illuminate even on a monitor, no an issue. In printing, that's different. So you have backlit printed things, but that is not what's generally happening. So you have to deal with these HDR images. As of today, HDR can't be present in a PDF file anyway, so the printing industry doesn't have an issue as of today, but that is going to change. So at some point, and I think later on we have the presentation of Peter about breaking PDF there. I'm sure he will talk about that. So that is something the printing industry needs to prepare itself for. And then multi-channel is also something. So you can have, so the normal print color space have 4 colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. But the digital printing machines these days add 3 more colors: orange, violet, and green. And that makes the print space, so the number of colors that can be printed, larger. That is all possible as of today. What is not possible is transparent interactions between CMYK OVG objects. So it's defined what happens if you have 2 CMYK objects overlapping each other using transparency, but it's undefined what's happening if these are maybe an RGB image overlaid by some CMYK OVG graphics. That is not specified in PDF. We are working on it. So, and when it comes out, printing industry needs to prepare itself. And the other thing that's changing these days are we have more tools around, cloud solutions for PDF creations. So vendors like us need to deal with new ways to create PDF. There is Adobe Express as an alternative to Adobe InDesign. There's Canva as a fast-growing company, online publishing tools, and that also changes the requirements to our software when it comes to preparing these PDF files for printing. And because that is a topic that deserves its own session, we have that, and that will be covered in the next session by David. Right? I hope so too. At least that was my assumption. So, thank you very much for being here with you. I hope you got a little bit of an understanding of what we do, what I do with my working hours. Any questions?
Thank you very much.